What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be scouting the MLS. I found 3 or 4 players in each position which are great value picks and perfect for the upcoming MLS season. The MLS starts at the end of February, so now is a perfect time to pick up those MLS players and use them throughout the summer. So let's get into the video. Okay, so let's start things off with one of my favorite goalkeeping options, which is Steve Clark from Houston. 37 years of age, and I believe his contract is he signed an extra 1 year with an option of 1 more after that. He's someone which scores very, very well, especially at home. And if we have a look at his price range, in rare, his last sale was £184, which is still very, very good. And his limited £8.56. If we have a look at his scores, he scored very, very well last season. If we take out any DMPs there and have a look at his home and away split. So he averaged 51 last year with 14 clean sheets. At home, he averaged 57.1, which is fantastic, and some nice high scores here, 82, 89, and an 86. And then away from home, he averaged 45.1, so you can really see the split, and that's quite a common thing for Houston. They are much better at home, and in the MLS as well, you tend to favour those home fixtures. But yeah, overall, a very, very good option. I would say if they're playing at home, you can pop him into 270s and probably into like Champ and All-Star. Whereas if they're not at home, I'll probably stick to the Cap 240 or maybe Cap 220 competitions. And next up, we have Brad Stuver, who plays for Austin. He's 32 years of age and has a contract until 2025. His last sale in rare was £180, which is similar to Steve Clark. And his last sales in limited was £7.75 and £9. He's someone which can be quite good for cap modes due to his low L15 of 38. And if we have a look at his scores, not as good as Steve Clark, probably more of a cap 240 goalie. But he is one of the best AA goalkeepers in the MLS at 10.8. Faces quite a lot of saves playing for Austin. 7 clean sheets, last season. If we have a little look at his home and away split, average 45.2 in the last year. At home, that's 49.2, and away from home, 40.7. So once again, a better home split. He goes through spells of being quite handy, like here in the middle of the season, some decent scores, and a few at the start that sort of tailed off towards the end of that season and had a run of 3 really bad games here. But that was when Austin were playing quite a lot of fixtures in a short space of time. The good thing with him, like I mentioned, is that his L15 is very, very low, so he'll be perfect for those Cap 220s, Cap 240 competitions. And he's someone that if Austin do hit a good run of form, he has the scoring matrix to actually score some nice dark green scores. And yeah, if he starts to actually score better, you could probably stretch and then start to actually use him in some better competitions. Next up, we have another older keeper in Stefan Frei, who plays for Seattle. He recently signed a 2-year contract extension, so that will mean that you've got a goalkeeper for the next couple of seasons. In terms of his price, in rare, 257, and in limited last sales of £17 and £18, so he is a little bit more expensive. His price was naturally lower prior to his contract extension. People were a little bit unsure on whether he was going to actually sign on, but yeah, he's now signed for 2 years, and Seattle are obviously one of the better teams in the MLS. Last year he played 37 times with 16 clean sheets, so basically a clean sheet every 2 games, which is great. You can see here lots of those dark green scores. The only downside with him is he does lack a little bit of the upside. But yeah, you get those sort of more regular clean sheets, but not as much upside as the other keepers like Steve Clark. A reason for that is probably when Seattle win, he isn't facing as many shots as those other keepers. And you can see that his AA here is a little bit lower at 6.2. If we have a look at his home and away split, at home, let me click that, there we go, averages 57.5, which is great. You can see he's very, very consistent at home. It's basically as sure of a thing that he's going to score well when Seattle are playing at home especially against those weaker opposition, like for instance here against Dallas. You can see here against Timbers, Minnesota, Rapids. When they've got those really nice home fixtures, he's definitely someone that you can play in those better competitions. And then when Seattle are away from home, you can see he's not as good and a few errors in there as well. 39.2 is actually quite a bad average. So when they aren't playing at home, I probably stick clear of playing him anywhere good and just whack him in those capped competitions. And the last goalkeeper we have is Pedro Gales, who plays for Orlando. He is 33 years of age and a contract until December 2024. In terms of his pricing, his last sale in rare was 258. And in a limited, a instant buy there a little bit higher at £18.79, but some recent sales around £14-15 there as well. In terms of his scoring in the last year, averaging 51, 44 games played with 14 clean sheets and a penalty save. I believe he does also play for Peru as well, which gives you a little bit of international utility, which is also great for this sort of budget. In terms of his scores, if we get rid of any DMPs or sub appearances and have a look at his home and away split, if you have a look at home, 50.6 at home and away from home 51.5. So he's one of those rare keepers that is very slightly better when they're not playing at home. But yeah, overall a very, very consistent option. Orlando had a very good season last year and they've kept a lot of their best players. So you would expect them to also have a good season moving forwards. He's someone which can give you a little bit of upside. You can see here a 90 score, 78, 86, 79, but not as consistent as someone like Stefan Frei. He does also play in the CONCACAF Champions League as well, which does then give him a little bit more utility, which is one thing that you don't really get with the other goalkeeping options. Now, moving into the defenders, we have got Andreu Fontas, or Andreu Fontas, who plays for Sporting Kansas, a contract until 2024 and 34 years of age. In terms of his last sales in rare, one hit at 33.55, one hit at 39.64, and one hit at 40. So probably somewhere between 35 and £40. And yeah, someone that I've looked at for a little while. I don't actually own him, but he's very, very consistent. If we take out all of the DMPs and sub appearances here, in the last year, averaging 55.7 with 21.1 AA, which is great. He's someone which does lack a little bit of that upside, but is very, very consistent, especially in that 50 to 70 range. He's someone that obviously is a little bit older, which brings his price down a little bit, but still scores very, very well. He's someone that will be great for any of those capped competitions, and in the right fixture, you can play him in the regionals and also All-Star. If we have a look at his scores here, especially when they're at home, averaging 62 with 27 AA, he's an absolute smash when they play at home. And then away from home, not as good at 50.7, but still very, very consistent, especially in that 40 to 50 range. Next, we have Brian Oviedo, who plays for Real Salt Lake, 33 years of age, and he's a little bit cheaper. His last rare sale, was £20 here, and in limited, some mixed sales here of £1.15, £1.45, and an instant buy here at £2. He's someone that I actually scouted previously as a budget option, and yeah, just a very, very solid player. If we take out the DMPs there, 52.7 average over the last year with 16.4 AA, and had a rogue 100 in there as well, which does push his score up slightly, but gives you a nice dark green score when he does play well, and he can score that just from AA as well. Like here, for instance, 40 AA against LAFC, 37 AA here against LA, 30 against Rapids. So he can score those dark greens just from AA alone, which is always nice. If we have a look at his split, 53.7 when he's at home and 51.9. So slightly better when he's at home, but someone that is quite consistent, so you can play him in most fixtures. Next, we have a Griffin Dorsy, who plays for Houston. He has just signed a new contract at Houston as well, which is great. He is 24 years of age, and you can partner him with Steve Clark, who we mentioned earlier. In terms of his pricing, his last rare sale here was £35. And his limiteds a little bit scattered, but one here at £3.70, one here at £5, and an instant buy here a little bit higher at £6.80. With all of these Houston players, they are much better when they're playing at home. If you have a look at his fixtures, one thing which you can see instantly is that he is capable of hitting those really high scores, which is great. 59.8 in the last year with 15 AA, 4 goals, 1 assists, 2 penalties, 1, and a clearance off the line as well. If you have a look at his split, excuse me, averaging 65.8 at home, which is crazy, with 21.4 AA. A 99 in there, and the lowest score was 45, which is crazy. You can see lots of AA here at home against Kansas, 46 AA in this 5-4 win. Well, they've let in 4 goals, 34 AA. Another game down here against Timbers with 39 AA and a clearance off the line as well. Someone which you can partner with Steve Clark, and when they're playing at home, an absolute smash once again. Away from home still averages 55.4, which is perfectly good for a lot of those cap competitions. And last up for the defenders, we have Brooks Lennon, who plays for Atlanta. He is 26 years of age and has a contract till 2025. He's a card which I do personally own, and I've had great success using him. His rare card, his last sale was £43, and in limited, a last sale here of £2.75, and before that, a auction of £3.28. The best thing with him is that he's a very forward-thinking fullback, takes a lot of their set pieces, which does mean that he has some huge upside. You can see here, if we get rid of the games where he's not playing, a little bit less on the AA, but he gets you a lot more of the DAs. Average 55 over the last year, 37 games played with 10 AA, 4 goals and 12 assists, which is crucial. A couple of 100 scores, a couple of scores here in the high 80s, and you can see games here where he does get you goals, assists. Like I was saying, very forward thinking for a fullback. Sometimes plays right mid if they play 3 at the back as well. And in his given week, he's perfectly capable of scoring very, very high, and is a great option, especially if his L15 comes down a little bit for his cap mode, especially cap 270. And in the right matchup, you can play him in All-Stars and Regionals. You can see at home averages 60, which is great, and both of his hundreds came when they played at home, and away from home 50.2, which is not as good, but you can see here a little bit more variance in his scores. A few stinky ones down here, but then some dark greens as well. So probably when they're not playing at home, whack them into 220s, 240s, and then when they're at home in the right fixtures, you can then put them into those better lineups as well. Now, moving into the midfield, we have Matej Klich, who used to play for Leeds and is now playing for DC. 33 years of age. His recent sales in rare, one here an auction for £67, and then before that a £52 sale and another auction at 71. His floor currently £82, but the recent average is 67, so probably around that £60 to £70 mark in rare, and limited. A bundle of sales here around that £4 mark. In terms of his scores, some very, very nice scores here. He does take a lot of their set pieces and gets decent AA as well. Obviously, he was managed by Rooney last season, and they've got a new manager this year. In the last year, 56.3 average with 14.2 AA, 4 goals, 7 assists, and some really nice dark greens. Is perfectly capable of hitting those late 80s and early 90s scores, and is probably well suited to cap 270, All-Star, those sort of competitions. When that at home, once again, a higher score of 60.7, and away from home, a little bit of a lower score at 52.5. I don't think DC will be much better this season. They were sort of around that bottom 5 teams last year. Haven't really made too many changes. But overall, doesn't really matter for his score. Takes a lot of set pieces, which means that you get a bit of upside with him. And you can see here that when DC go on a little bit of a run, he can score perfectly well, and is a great scorer And for his price, I think is a really, really solid option. Next up in the midfield, we have got Ronan, who plays for the Colorado Rapids. A good age at 25. His recent sales, £57 and £56 in rare, and in limited, a whole bundle of sales here around the £4 to £4.50 mark, and an auction that went a little bit higher at £6.71. He's someone that I haven't really scouted too much, but just from looking on Twitter, he's someone that is highly rated, even in a very, very bad Rapids team last season. Scored very, very well. Gives you a little bit of upside, and is quite consistent here in that 40 to like 60 range. And the Rapids have made quite a few good signings as well, so they're probably going to be one of those teams that make quite a big jump. I believe they were bottom last year, and yeah, I think you'll see them push up towards the sort of mid-table this season. 34 games played last year, 13.7 AA, 1 goal, 8 assists. And yeah, when he gets those goals and assists, can get you into those dark greens. Overall, a very, very solid option. And yeah, like I was saying, if the Rapids get better this season, then you would expect his scores to also increase as well. Next up in the midfield, we have gone for Christian Roldan from Seattle, one of the brothers. He is 28 years of age and has a great contract until 2027. In terms of his pricing in rare, the last two sales are £58 and £48. And in terms of limited, the last couple of sales, an auction at £3.60, another one at £3.60, and a offer of £2.85. So probably around that £3 mark as an average. Struggled a little bit last year with injuries, but you can see that if we just take those games out and have a look at his scores when he is playing, someone that can get you those dark green scores, is quite consistent as well, rarely gives you a bad game. Only 20 games played last season, 3 goals, 2 assists, and a penalty won. But yeah, Seattle overall a very, very solid team. And if he can stay healthy, I think we can get a lot more of this bundle of scores here. And someone that, yeah, just overall a really, really solid option. And for his price, I don't really think you can go wrong, especially in limited. Next up in the midfield, we've got our first U23 option in Cesar Aro, who plays for Orlando. 22 years of age and is U23 until July 1st in 2025. In terms of his pricing, quite a good price actually for a U23 option. An auction here of £46 and a couple before here at £54. In terms of limited, couple of sales here around £4.80, £4.70. So yeah, overall a really nice price for a U23 option. You can see from his scores here, overall he's quite a consistent scorer in that 40 to 50 range. You can see here 17 scores in the last year in that range. Does lack a little bit of that upside, but down to his age is obviously perfectly capable of taking that next step forwards. If we have a look at his scores as a whole, take out all those sub games, at home 52.5 and away from home 54.4, so slightly better when he's not at home, but overall very, very consistent. You can see here that when he does get that goal or assist, he is perfectly capable of scoring very, very high, hitting 100 here against Toronto. Orlando, like I mentioned earlier, a very, very solid team. Haven't really made too many changes, so should be good again this season. And if he can take a step forward, start to actually get some more goals and assists with that baseline of AA, hopefully we can see some more dark green scores. And then into the forwards, we go with Johnny Russell, who is 33 years of age and has a contract until 2024, plays for Sporting Kansas. The last couple of sales in rare about £55, and in limited a bundle of sales here ranging from £3.40 to £3.80. He's someone that on his day can score very, very well and gets lots of AA for a forward. The biggest issue with him is injury. Missed a large portion of the season, I think 2 years prior to a large injury, and then a few games last season as well. Often gets a few hamstring niggles. But yeah, overall when he does play, lots of AA, 13.1, which is great for a forward. 27 games, 9 goals, 3 assists, and a red card as well. You can see that when he does score or assist, perfectly capable of getting in that 80 to 90 range, 4 scores in the last 27 games, which is great. And I expect, like all MLS players, yeah, slightly better at home, 58.2, and away from home, 55.2. So yeah, when they're playing at home in the right matchup, for instance, here against Minnesota, here against Quakes, here against Salt Lake, all of those really nice matchups, you can play him in those cap 270 modes. His L15 is a little bit high currently at 56, so maybe might be a issue getting him into like cap 240s, but overall for his price and for his AA as a forward, I think he's a really nice option moving forwards. Our next forward is another U23 option, which is Kwadwo Uoku. I think I said that right. Plays for Montreal, and has a contract until 2026, and is also a U23 till then as well. His price is a little bit higher, just down to him being a U23 option. Last sales hit of 87, 73, and 82. His floor is currently quite high, so there's not many cards on the market, but hopefully you can get an offer in for around that price range. In terms of limited, obviously a little bit more reasonable, around that £7 to £8 mark. But yeah, someone that moved over from LA last season. And yeah, if we have a look at his scores, the reason that I picked him is that from what I've seen, he's someone that can be capable to actually take that next step forward. Like we can see here, has scored 100 as well. Very quick, quite a direct player. And yeah, 33 games played last year. I'd be interested to see what the split is between LA and Montreal. So slightly better when he played for Montreal. If you have a look at home as well, 55.8 with 4 goals and 1 assist. So basically a goal or assist every 2 games when Montreal are playing at home. And then away from home, yeah, he's not as good, 36.7. So he's one player that has a huge home and away split. Away from home, only 36.7, and at home averages 55. So that's what, like 20 points difference. So yeah, when they play at home, he's a really, really good player. From looking at his fixtures, I'm not sure why, but the first 6 games, they aren't playing at home. So maybe you wait until this home game here against Cincinnati, and then purchase him here in game week 4, 6, 7, and hopefully get a few more home games out of him. See here, they've got quite a nice run from 4, 7, 5 onwards, with 4 out of the next 5 games at home. But yeah, hopefully if he can take the next step forwards, will be a very, very good option, and obviously gives you that U23 utility as well. And last up, our final forward option is Alan Pulido, another Kansas player, 32 years of age and has a contract until 2026. In terms of his prices, a couple of higher sales here at 86 and 78 pounds, but a little bundle before at 65 pounds. His floor is currently 85, so maybe you can get him in that 70 to 80 pounds range. And in limited, a couple of higher sales here at £5.73 and £5.49, but a few lower ones here between that £4 to £5 mark. In terms of his scores, he's someone that is capable of getting goals and assists, and getting them in bundles as well, which is quite key. If we have a look at his scores, quite streaky. You can see here that a really nice run of games here in the middle of the season, right around here. And you can see that he's scoring and assisting in patches, which is actually quite good. If he hits a rich vein of form, you can whack him in those better lineups. You see here, 1 goal, 2 goals and assists, another goal, 2 goals, another goal, 2 goals. And yeah, perfectly capable of getting in that 80 to high 90 range. 7.3 AA, which is quite nice for a forward. And yeah, in the last year, 31 games, but 14 goals and 4 assists. So he's definitely more of that typical goal scorer. Doesn't give you as much AA as Johnny Russell, but when he does play, has that higher chance of getting goals and assists. In terms of his splits, 53.4 away and 53.3 at home. So basically the exact same home or away from home. And yeah, just overall a very, very nice option. Gives you a little bit more upside than the other strikers. And yeah, if you can partner him with more of those AA heavy players and he gets you those goals and assists, I think he's a really good option. And yeah, with his L15 a little bit higher, but you can fit him very nicely into Cap 270 competitions, and then maybe even partner him with Johnny Russell as well. Okay, that is going to be all for today's video, guys. Thank you very, very much for watching. Just a note, I had a look on my YouTube and we are now over 200 subscribers, which is great. However, over 90% of you that are watching are not subscribed. So if you can please hit that subscribe button, it will really help out the channel. Pop any questions down below and I'll see you next time.